Hi, in this video I'll talk about functions, how to insert or edit a function. I'll talk about the arguments of a function, the data types of an argument, about the list separator. So a lot to handle. Let's get to it. So what is a function? A function performs certain calculations by using specific values called arguments. And a combination of functions we call a formula. There are some different ways to insert a function in Excel, and mostly we use the way by typing, just typing the function. I'm going to show you later how it is done. You can also click on this button here and then you call the function wizard, or you can go to the tab formulas in the ribbon. And in formulas, you find the same button to call the function wizard. Or you can, for example, go to a function. You see here all the functions known by Excel divided in categories. Let's say I need a text function. I need the clean function. So I click on the text. I see here the clean function. I click on it. And then also the function wizard appears. And I've got the function in my cell here and I can work with it. To type in a function, just start typing. For example, I want to add all the numbers here from range A1 till A10, and I want to do this in cell C1. Well, I select C1 and I start typing. And always a function starts with the equal sign. So I start with the equal sign. And then I start, for example, with the name of the function SU, and I need the sum function. And you see all the functions starting with SU are appearing here. Then I can click on the function I need. I need the sum function over here, or I can use my arrow keys up and down, go to the function I need and use the tab key to select the function. What I see next is, first of all, I see the function and the round brackets and the opening of the round brackets. Every function needs the round brackets opening and closing. Mostly, between the round brackets, you will need to give the function some values, and as I said before, these values are called the arguments, and that's what you see here. The sum function needs some values, number 1, and then you see the semicolon, and then number 2 between square brackets, and then the semicolon, and so on and so on. Dus you need to give this function some values to calculate with, in this case to sum them up. These arguments can be the content of a cell. So I select, for example, A1, and you see A1 appears. And then for the next argument, I need to type in my semicolon, and that's what we call the list separator. And later on, more on the list separator, but it's important that you know what is the list separator in your Excel, because it can change depending on the regional settings of your computer. So in my case, it's a semicolon. It can be, for example, a comma. Then you see here number 2 between square brackets is lightening up, is in bold now. So I need to give the second argument. Why is it between square brackets? It's not always the case. Well, this means that square brackets for an argument means that you don't need to give this argument. Yeah? So the square brackets means you don't need to give the second argument. If you just want to sum up the first argument, it's okay. In this case, I'm going to use the second argument and I'm just going to click here. So now I'm summing up the contents of A1 and A2. And I type my semicolon. And for example, I want also cell the contents of cell A3, and you see you can just type it in. It's also a possibility. Instead of selecting the cell, you just can type in the cell, and you don't need to be aware of uppercase or lowercase. Just type in the cell, and you see also that Excel recognizes immediately what you are typing because it gives a color showing you, okay, now you are meaning cell A3. So as I said, every function starts with the equal sign. Then you have the name of the function. Then you have the opening round bracket. Then you have the arguments, and the arguments are separated with the list separator. And then you have the close round brackets. And this whole defines the function, and in this case, the sum function. So if I now enter this, then everything will be performed. The sum of A1, A2, A3 will be calculated.
So to make it more clear for you, I copied the function in C1, I copied in D1, but I didn't copy the equal sign. So for Excel, this is just some text, but now you can see what is going on in cell C1. If I click in the formula bar, I'm now in C1, and if I click in the formula bar, I just have the function again. If I click here in the cell, I can type in, I can type in other arguments. And if I go with my cursor over the function name here, then I can select this name. And if I do that, then the help of Excel will appear with the function itself. So here you can read about the function, it's working, and what kind of arguments it's needed, and stuff like that. Let's get now a more closer look at the arguments. And for this, I'm going to retype the function in cell C2. And you see, I just type in sum, and also that is possible. Excel knows the moment it's a valid function name, it knows the function, and even it's in lowercase, it must be uppercase, no problem about that. And what I did here is selecting the first argument, number one, is selecting the cell A1. An argument can be a cell or a range of cells. Yeah? What I can do here, for example, is selecting A1, A2, and A3. And then you have a range of cells from A1 to A3. And now the sum function will sum up all contents of A1, A2, and A3. If you see this function like this, try to think about how many arguments are here and how many arguments do you see here. I'll let you think about it for a couple of seconds. And if you came up with the number 1 for the arguments in the function here, then you are right. It's indeed just one argument. Here we have three arguments. First argument is the cell A1. Second argument divided by the list separator is cell A2. Third argument is cell A3. Here we just have one argument, and an argument is a range of cells. So an argument can be a cell, can be the content of a cell, can be a range of cells. And for example, I can do this. Now I have two arguments. First argument is a range of cells. Second argument is cell A4. And I can do this because an argument of the function sum needs a number. Well, I ask the function sum up everything what's in A1 to till A3 and sum up A4 and sum up 20, and it will do that for me. So I have here three arguments with two arguments are references to a cell or to more cells, and one argument is just a number. If I press the enter key, then it will sum up all this. What will happen if I do this? I give the sum function some text, literally some text. It's the fourth argument, but the sum function is asking me numbers, and everybody knows, yeah, you can add numbers, you can't add text. It's common sense. Well, you get an error, of course. So let me delete this. It's not good. And let me select cell E11. What will happen? Well, because E11 is empty, nothing will happen. The sum function will sum up everything from A1 to A3 with A4, with 20, and with 11, which is empty, which is blank. So nothing will happen for A11, and I still get my number 30 as a result. Let's say I put in a number here, 5, then of course the result will change to 35. I change here and look what's happening. Now I don't get the error. I ask the function here to sum up everything with also cell E11, and it doesn't give me an error, because if it's a cell and if the contents in the cell is not what the sum function is expecting, then it will neglect it. So if you put in text as an argument, then you get the error, the value error. If you put in a cell some text, then it just will be neglected. So that's an advantage of the sum function, of course. If you select a range of cells, let's say I do this, I just want to add up these cells, and for some reason or another in one cell there will be text in it. Well, it doesn't care, yeah. But if you put in text as an argument, and text as an argument is always between double quote, yeah, this, then it will give me an error. So this means that arguments are sensitive to what kind of data you use. An argument needs a certain data type. And we have not that many data types in Excel. So we already talked about the data type number. The sum function expects a data type number. We talked about the data type text, the second argument here, which will give me an error because the data type of the second argument is text, is the data type text. In D1, we have the data type text, just some text, not a function, because the equal sign is not there. We have the data type date. For example, if I use a date function, give me an example here. For example, if I use the ISO-week number the function, and the ISO-week number function gives me the week number of a certain date, so it expects one argument, and this argument must be from the data type date. And then you have some other data types like logical, the error data type, less important to need to know now. Most important are the data type text and number, and maybe date if you start working with dates. And also, what you have to know is that the result of your function, and let me recap this with the two arguments A1 to A3 and A4. The result of this function, I press enter, I get the the sum of these four cells give me 10. Well, of course, this is also belongs also to a kind of a data type. And of course, the sum function will give you sum up some numbers, so the result is a data type number. Mostly all functions who do some calculations will give you back a data type number. But it's not always the case. For example, there are date functions who gives you a data type number back, date functions who give you data type date back. And why you need to know this? Well, because what I can do also as an argument, we talked about an argument can be a range of cell, can be the reference to a cell, can be a number, but can also be, for the sum function, can also be another function. And let me do this. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but let me sum up a1 to a3, a4, and as the third argument, I again use the sum function. And for example, I do this. I take another sum function and see that this function has the same notation as all the functions, namely you need the name of the function, the open round brackets, the arguments separated with the separator, and the close round brackets, so that stays the same always. And the result of this sum function will be given to this sum function as the third argument and will sum up. The result will be 30. This 30 will sum up with a4 and a1 to a3. So of course it's important to know what is the data type of the result of this function, because if you use it in another function, yes, you need to know if you have the right data type for the function you use. So very important also is to know what is the data type of the result of a function. Till now, we typed in the function starting with the equal sign and type in our function. Well, let me briefly explain how the function wizard works. So in cell C3, I will create a function with the function wizard, and you can call up the function wizard with this button. So click on this button. And then you have a screen where the latest function you used is shown here, and you can search functions by typing them in here. So I'm just going to select some function and I type OK, or I press OK. And you see, of course, you see here the first argument, number 1, number 2 as a second argument between square brackets. Remember, it's not necessary, but you need to give the first argument. It tries to think that I'm going to use A3 to B3, but it's not. I'm going to select A1 to A3. So my cursor was in the first argument and I just select the range of cell I need. And here you see the build-up like we did before. There's exactly the same way, only you have a result here. It shows you 1, 2, 3 that's the content of the cells A1 to A3. If I go in my second argument and I select A4, what we did before, then I get the number 4 because the content of cell A4 is 4, and so on. So if I now click OK, I get the result. Immediately have the result here is shown. There is some more explication about the data type and about the working of the function itself, so it comes in handy. What I like about the function wizard is the following. Let's do this again. So I go to the function wizard, I select the sum function, and I want my range here, I want my cell here, and here I'm going to build up this function. I'm going to use again a function in this sum. I just type in sum, even I don't need to give the closing round brackets. But the moment I do this, I see it here appearing, and I go to the next to the next argument, I see I get an error. An error, why? Because I need to give minimum one argument to the sum function, and it detected here is something missing. And what I like about the wizard is, and where it comes in very handy, that I can select the function here. For example, if I select the function here, I just click in the function here, I get the argument of this function. So here I can type, for example, the 10 and the 20 we had here, the 10 and the 20. You see, the error is gone, by the way. If I click in the function here, I get every argument of this function. The first argument, the second argument, and the third argument is the nested function sum. If I click in the nested function, I get the arguments of the nested function. Let's imagine you have, and it really can happen, another function in a function, a third function as an argument. Then you can click in it, you can type the function, and you can fill in the arguments like I did, like I showed you now. So it comes in very handy, especially if you are really lost track of all the closing parentheses or the closing brackets, sorry. So if I click on OK now, then I have, of course, the same function, just created the same function with the function wizard.
To finish with, let's talk about the list separator. We know now that the list separator is used to separate the different arguments in your function. And the list separator, for example, on my computer for my Windows 10 operating system is the semicolon. It can change depending on your regional settings of your operating system. For example, I have the regional setting from Belgium, and there you have a list separator, the semicolon. If you have the regional settings from the United States, for example, you will not have the semicolon as list separator, but the comma as list separator. If you use the function wizard, and let me call the function wizard here, and for example, I want to add another argument, then you will see, let's just add here 10 as the fourth argument. You see here that automatically the 10 is added and the list separator is automatically set here, in this case, the semicolon. But it can be that on your computer it will be a comma. Well, you need to know this mostly because if you go to examples you find on the internet or even in the help function of Excel, and like we did before, let me call it the help function of the sum function. You have some examples, and let's say I want to copy paste this example to see what it gives in my Excel, and I paste it here in A13. I have a correct name of a function, the sum. I have a correct first argument going from A2 to A10. I have a correct second argument C2 to C10. I'm going to add this with the sum function, and here you see this is the wrong list separator for my computer because I have the regional settings of Belgium, and Excel expects here the semicolon. So if I enter to see the result, I get an error. Now I should change this to my semicolon, and now you see immediately Excel recognizes the second argument, it colors it, and of course if I now press the enter key I have a result. So you have to be aware of what kind of list separator you have, and also if you, for example, have the regional settings from the United States, you have a comma as a list separator. Certainly you have another Decimal separator. It can't be the comma. In my computer, if I use a decimal number, for example, 12 and a half, you will see that the comma is my decimal separator. Yeah? It can't be my list separator. If I should add here, let's take the same, well, doesn't matter. If I will add here a decimal number and I do this, and I have a list separator as a comma, then it will be two arguments, the 12 and the 5, and not one argument, 12.5. So probably the dot will be your decimal separator if you have regional settings of the United States. So be aware of what is my list separator. If you try to copy and paste examples from the web, you need to be aware that mostly these functions, these examples are always examples with regional settings from the United States. So list separator will be a comma, and you have to change this in a semicolon if you have the semicolon as a list separator. So this concludes this video about functions. Function has arguments. Arguments are separated with a list separator. And be aware that this is not only something that you use in Excel, but if you use other software where you have to do some scripting, like in statistical software, you're going to use functions, and functions always work in the same manner. You will see a kind of similar functions in other software to calculate stuff. And always these functions have arguments. Maybe they have another way of separating arguments, but it's always the same. They have arguments, you have to separate them. Arguments have data types. You need to be aware about the data type, give the correct data type to your function, otherwise the functions will not work. So it's good to know about these basics about functions.